If every pharmacist I talk to is a little bit unhappy or secretly burnt out, and people are leaving in droves, as I've talked about in other videos, then are there even happy pharmacists out there? And if they do exist, what sectors are they in, so that maybe you could look at those sectors to see if you too could do that and be fulfilled by your work? Well, I've got some fascinating data that I think is going to surprise you at the extent of how much these pharmacists are thriving. And I believe that we're going to make this as applicable as possible. So let's get into that. According to the 2023-2024 Well-Being Index Report, this is a wellness report that looks at multiple industries and multiple sectors within industries. They track to see how happy, how thriving, how drained these professionals are. And you may not be surprised by this, but pharma industry pharmacists are absolutely crushing it when it comes to thriving. We're talking 59%, 60%, okay? 3 out of every 5 pharmacists say that they are thriving in their careers, while only 12% feel distressed. Now, if you compare that to community chain pharmacists, only 24% say they're thriving, and a whopping 29% are distressed. The rest, they're just getting by, somewhere in between struggling and so-so. What does it mean to be thriving? It means that you're engaged by your work. You feel like time is different than when you're working. You feel like there's an impact. You feel like there's a higher meaning. You feel like you're achieving something versus being a cog in a machine. Opportunities are presented to you on a regular basis because of your great work. You know, I want to let those numbers that I just shared with you kind of sink in for a minute. When you have high burnout rates, like what we're seeing in retail, hospital, clinical roles, it affects everything that you do. Your personal life, your mental health, how you think about yourself, right? Because I've seen it over and over again with every pharmacist that we've worked with, yes, even in pharma sectors, that because they're stressed out, they don't value what they do. Because they don't value what they do, they're not confident in themselves and their application or their candidacy. And because they're not confident, they don't push themselves to go do things that they may find fulfilling or exciting because, well, why would they be chosen? They don't feel valuable. They don't feel like they can do that thing. When nearly 1 out of every 3 chain pharmacists are distressed, high stress that leads into home life, leads into conflict. You're more likely to divorce when you are burnt out. It leads to higher rates of heart attacks and anxiety attacks. It's not just like a number or a statistic that you can take home and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's going to change my life. Like, this is real people dealing with real struggles every single day. It's missed family events. It's high stress health issues. It's going on antidepressants because you can't seem to handle the stress. It's constant exhaustion. And it's why so many pharmacists have wisened up to what is happening in pharma and makes sense for them. Why would I continue sacrificing myself to not get the reward that the sacrifice really demands? And so I'm going to look somewhere else. When I look into pharma, I see 12 big sectors that you could get into, and I talk a lot more about that in our coaching program, but I'm going to break down 4 different sectors for you so that you can really see what pharmacists are really most interested in and where I see most pharmacists transitioning into. And we're going to break down a little bit of why those roles can be so satisfying. So first up is the Medical Science Liaison, or MSL. These folks are our scientific experts, do all-day communications, working with healthcare providers to educate them about data and new medications. Let me tell you, I love hearing MSLs talk about their work because they feel like they're using their highest level of clinical knowledge in ways that they never imagined before in like a clinical setting. It is one of the most competitive things that a pharmacist can get into. But for people that enjoy meeting new people, who enjoy a little bit of travel with their work, some jobs have more travel requirements than others, and others who enjoy being on the cutting edge of therapies and the science, this is something that I think a lot of people find fulfilling. And if you check out our top paid pharmacist jobs, it's always listed at one of the top roles for pharmacists to pursue. Then we have regulatory affairs, where you're shaping how drugs get developed and approved and interacting with federal bodies. I was just talking with someone in this role a few weeks ago, and they told me something really interesting. They said, instead of putting out fires all day, they're preventing them from happening in the first place. Regulatory roles is also very competitive to get into, and there are not a whole lot of roles opening. And admittedly, there's also regulatory roles in clinical settings, in hospital settings, in lots of different settings. It's just they typically don't always use the word affairs in the role. And now we cannot forget medical affairs. This is a dynamic role where science meets strategy. You're the scientific bridge between pharma and healthcare providers, translating complex data into real world impact. Now, I separate medical affairs specifically from MSLs because MSL kind of like has its own brand, its own identity. Sometimes if companies are smaller, MSLs are within medical affairs. Sometimes they're separate. Sometimes, truthfully, these roles within pharma, they're all over the place. It's hard to distinguish between one and another sometimes. And so when you're interviewing for these roles, you better be sure to ask as many questions as possible to see what departments you'll be interacting with, because it could be all of them. Within medical affairs, you could be doing a lot of different things, from developing educational programs to collaborating with key opinion leaders and ensuring the science behind every product is rock solid. One of our clients put it best. She loves that she's still using her clinical knowledge, but instead of helping one patient at a time, she's shaping the care for thousands. If you want to combine your clinical expertise, which you do have, whether you are in retail, hospital, and no residency, but you get to combine that expertise with the big picture influence, med affairs could be right for you. And now let's talk about the fourth and final one, medical information and communications, which, yes, sometimes within medical affairs, but it is also different. These roles are perfect for pharmacists who love diving into the clinical data and explaining complex information. You're the go-to expert for answering healthcare provider questions, creating educational materials, and ensuring like everything that you say about the product is accurate, valuable, and helpful. The best part, many of these roles are now remote, which brings me to another huge benefit of pharma. You get structured hours. You get 9 to 5. You get real lunch breaks. You get no more 5-minute scarfing down sessions between prescriptions or verifying orders. The actual weekend off is needed. Okay. And in some positions, some of our clients are negotiating for the 4-day work week, 10-hour shifts. It's beautiful. Just one of our clients last week told me something that really stuck with me. She said, for the first time in 15 years, I can actually attend my kids' soccer games. Look, being able to have that flexibility to take time off, it's a huge benefit that very few people in clinical practice will ever be able to have. Let's talk about money, because I know that's a huge concern for a lot of people, and it matters. Money can buy happiness. I mean, who's having depression on a jet ski? Pharma doesn't just throw a salary at you. They build a complete package that includes bonuses that can anywhere between 10 to 20% of your base salary, stock options, comprehensive healthcare, usually a strong 401k that they match, and they even invest in your professional development, sending you to conferences, letting you get CE. It's a whole different world from what most pharmacists are used to experiencing. But look, I got to keep it real. Like with any career, like with any path, pharma has its own challenges. Or if you're an MSL, like I said before, you could be traveling 50% of your time. When a product launches from the FDA, you got incredible deadlines coming, and you could be getting waves and waves of work. Even our remote teams sometimes handle urgent safety problems and jumping on early morning calls with global teams. Some challenges are totally different, though, than what you may be facing in retail or hospital. You're not missing holidays, probably. You're probably not doing 12-hour shifts except when you go to conferences. Instead, you're managing projects and deadlines and maybe having difficult team members to work with. And you know what? Every pharmacist I talk to tells me the trade-off is usually absolutely worth it. You know, a medical affairs pharmacist once told me, instead of doing like 300, 400 scripts a day, I'm helping develop medications that could help millions. And I don't feel the pressure of each single patient coming up to me demanding so much. Everyone's journey is unique, but what matters most is truly finding out what matters to you, your values, your passions, your curiosities. And if that isn't present, it doesn't matter where you go, whether it's pharma or somewhere else. If it's not aligned with you, it's going to be a mismatch. Some pharmacists thrive in retail. I mean, the evidence points that that does exist. Others thrive in the clinical setting and hospital. Look, it's a numbers game. There are plenty of pharma pharmacists in the industry who are drained, miserable. I get these emails from people who give me long explanations about what is going wrong in their life and their career. So whether you're stuck or you're unsure about what your next career move can be, I have a quiz that can be very helpful. And we've verified it now with over 700 pharmacists. It's called What Jobs Am I Qualified For? The link's right below. It's very helpful. It's already helped lots of people discover roles that they didn't know that they qualified for, that they could be potentially perfect. Sometimes you just need a little push to find your next step on the path. If you click the link in the description, it'll take you right to the quiz, answer a few questions. I think it's like only a handful, and it'll give you a list of different paths and information, videos, blogs that share more about these paths and some steps that you can take to really enjoy the career that you've worked so hard on. I'd love to hear from you. What sector are you working in now? And how's your job satisfaction? If you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, this is the worst job I've ever had, to a 10 being, this is the best experience ever, I'm so happy that I took this job. I'd love to hear from you where you're at. Remember though, the happiest pharmacists aren't just following these numbers. They've found roles that align with who they are, what they're great at, their goals, and what they want to do with their lives. And I would love to be a part of that journey for you, discovering what that next step is. So thanks for watching this video. Until I see you in the next one, stay curious, take care.